Have you seen Rumi's stunning shoulder embroidery from K-pop Demon Hunters and thought, there's no way I could make that without a embroidery machine? Well, you totally can, and I'm going to show you how. Hi, I'm Christina, a digital pattern maker who loves to create pieces of wearable art that I can wear and share. Today, I'm going to show you how you can create Rumi's shoulder embroidery completely by hand and with a regular sewing machine. No embroidery machine required. I am making Rumi's golden costume this year for Halloween, and since I didn't have an embroidery machine, I decided to design and sew this embroidery patch myself and share it with you. I'm going to walk you through each step so that you can create this amazing shoulder piece and use the pattern that I designed. If you would like to, it is linked in the description down below. And don't forget to subscribe so that you can follow along as I make the rest of Rumi's costumes and share all the different steps with you on how you can make it yourself. Let's go ahead and grab our materials and get started. I'm going to need some black felt, a chalk pen, and the pattern to begin. I'm going to start by projecting my pattern off. I'm going to use patternprojector.com to do this. You can also print off this pattern and transfer it another way. But the first thing we need to do is transfer the pattern and all of these different lines to our felt. That way we have a guideline to follow as we are sewing. I used this white chalk pen because I knew if I rubbed and flicked it enough, it would come off eventually, and it'll probably actually come off while I'm sewing. But it's also one of those that I will be covering up all of these white pieces, so I'm not too worried about it coming off. But it is something you want to be aware of when you are transferring the pattern, because you never know if you will miss a little bit, and if it's permanently there, you might not be so happy. So you just want to make sure that you are transferring all of those lines so that you have something to follow while you are sewing. I want to give my embroidery a little bit more stiffness, a little bit more structure. I have this tearaway embroidery backing that I am going to first pin to my felt, and then I'm going to sew all the way around it to kind of marry them together so they don't move on each other, and I can do all of the satin stitching without the two fabrics moving apart or doing something wonky. It just helps give your embroidery a little bit more structure and a little bit more oomph to stay together. Once they're together, it is time to start satin stitching around those flowers. You want to make sure that you're doing all of the white lines except for the center bits of the flowers. That's where we're going to be doing some embroidery floss at a later date. I'm going around a second time because I wanted a little bit more volume and a little bit more thickness on the gold so that it really stuck out. As you're sewing around, you want to make sure that as you get to those corners, you are not over sewing them too much or going off somewhere where you don't want to go. I also found I'm using a gold thread that broke very often. I had to turn my tensions down so that it wasn't snapping all the time, but even with lower tensions and everything, the thread was just snapping on me. So it's something you will have to learn some patience and deal with the thread snapping sometimes and just having to rethread your sewing machine. Here I am doing the center circle. The center circle is the hardest of them all to do because you have to go at such a tight angle to get it in that circle. But I'm so thrilled with how it turned out. Now it's time to finish up this embroidery by hand embroidering with some embroidery floss the 5 colors of the 5 petals. I chose to do a light pink, dark pink, purple, light blue, and kind of a teal blue for the 5 colors. I felt those best represented what she had on, as well were the closest threads that I had in my stock. I'm going to start by poking my needle through and doing one long stitch from the bottom of where the petal is going to be colored to the top of where the petal is going to be covered. This is just kind of helping with my guideline because my white chalk has kind of worn off. It's still there very, very faintly. I don't know if you can see it in the video. I can't really see it here, but I know when I was sewing it, it was very faint. So I kind of wanted to give myself a guideline to work on. Then I'm going to cover up that one long stitch by doing a whole bunch of perpendicular stitches, starting out nice and small at the top and going wider down towards the bottom. Sometimes I did find that it was easier to not try to do stitches exactly right next to each other. It was easier to go a little bit further down the petal and do longer stitches a little bit further apart and then go back through and fill in. Everybody has their own way that they like to do the embroidery floss and how they like to work with this type of stitching. This is just what I found was the best way that worked for me. And now we're going to move on to the final light blue. I am absolutely loving how this embroidery is looking right now, and I am so excited to add it and attach it to my jacket. Now we're going to want to tear away that tear away embroidery facing so that it's nice and clean, and we can move on to the final step. The last step that you're going to need to do is cut away all the extra felt. So you're going to want to cut about 1/8 of an inch away from the gold thread that you have zigzagged around for the edge of the patch, so you have something to sew the patch on to the jacket with. Ooh, I'm so excited! And there you have it. All that's left is to sew the embroidery patch onto your bolero jacket, which you still might have to make. We'll see. I hope you enjoyed making your own roomy shoulder embroidery with me, and make sure that if you are interested in the pattern, you grab it in the link down below so that you can make your own amazing shoulder embroidery even without an embroidery machine. If you want to see how the rest of Rumi's costume comes together or learn how to digitally pattern draft your own designs, make sure to like this video and subscribe so that you don't miss out on any tutorials. I look forward to seeing what you create. Happy sewing!